Hi, this is Quinn Costello here with SF Indie Fest, and I'm here with the filmmakers for A Perfectly Good Moment.
I'm
We
sorry,
have
it's just
direct.
perfectly good moment. There's no A in there.
Oh, so sorry about that. I had
All
had
right.
that written wrong in my document. So we have the filmmakers with Perfectly Good Moment, and we have Lauren Greenhall, the director. We have Amanda Jane Stern, actress and screenwriter, and Stephen Carlisle, actor. So thank you all so much for being here with us today. And I guess maybe I'll start with Amanda. Can you kind of tell me about the process of writing the film and kind of how the idea kind of came about and what you were inspired by and thinking about at the time that you were writing the film?
Yeah, so I wrote this script in February of 2021, and I actually wrote it over 3 days, I think, at least the first draft. There were edits, of course, after that, but I did send it to Stephen after my first 3-day writing session. And I've been saying that these two characters have sort of been in my head for a really long time, and they've kind of gone through different iterations and different scripts that I've written over the years. And I think writing them this time was when I really figured out what the right way to write them was, and who they needed to be, and to not be too in love with them, to let them be horrible people more than I was originally feeling like.
Oh, it sounds like there's a little feedback, but whatever you did corrected it. So, yeah, Stephen, can you kind of tell me a little bit about what that process was like for you and a little bit about your background and how you two kind of then began to collaborate from that point forward?
Well, I Amanda came to see me in a show on Broadway and came backstage. It was the first time we ever met, and we had a great time and a couple of bottles of champagne. And after that, she messaged me. We had a little bit of like messaging over maybe a couple of months, and then within the pandemic, probably a year later, she writes to me and says, "Look, I've written a film with you in mind. Would you read it? And would you do it?" And I said, "Yes, I'll do it. And yes, I'll read it." And that was really the introduction. And I read the script and I thought, oh, this is a brilliant story. This is a brilliant story. And I'd love to tackle this part because he's quite a complicated character, you know. He's not a very nice person. And yet he's somebody who thinks he is quite a nice person. So, and that's pretty much how we sort of got to know each other. It was like a blind date type of thing. And she wrote a script, asked me to do it, and then suddenly I was doing it. And it's been the most sort of thrilling ride ever since then.
And Lauren, how did you get involved in the film?
So the colorist I always work with, her name is Emily Bailey. She went to high school with one of the producers, Julian, and she reached out to me and said, "I think that you would really like this script. Can I throw your hat in the ring for director?" And I read the script and I loved it. And I just thought, why not? I have nothing to lose by going after this. And I talked on the phone with Amanda and Julian for a while, and the rest is history. They tricked me and Steven into meeting in the park. We both thought the other one had already signed on, but neither of us had. And by the end of the day, they said, "Cool, let's take a photo. We're all doing this film together." So.
And I just say quick, it's like Amanda never really asks you to do anything. She just sort of tells you. She asks you, but it's like a statement. You know, you are going to do this, so you just say yes. You get on board with it because she's just like she's this force of nature. You know, she's like you just do it. You know, and she's like so. Me and Lauren, we were suddenly in it, and we both loved each other very much and loved Amanda. So, okay, well, we're doing this thing, and it took our lives for quite a long time.
Sometimes you just have to give yourself over to the serendipity and just kind of accept that you're on the train, you know. So I'll kind of put this question out to anybody that wants to answer it. But I haven't, I've seen films about kind of just, completely abusive relationships, but it's pretty rare to see something about this kind of like very heightened, codependency and some of the kind of aspects of that you're kind of bringing up through this character and through this script and everything. And I was wondering if like, did you kind of see something that was missing in movies and that you hadn't seen before and that you were looking to kind of explore? And yeah, can you kind of talk about portrayals of the dynamics of these kind of relationships?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lauren,
I feel
do you want
like,
us to both do this one?
oh,
No, I was
What?
just gonna say, do you want us to both like tag team on this one? Because I know this is
Yeah,
something
for
we talk
sure.
about a lot.
yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that really excited me about the script when I read it is I think the majority of relationships that are toxic have a dynamic like this, where it's not one person is a monster and one person is the victim, that there's really this, people can love each other, but something's wrong, right? And me and Amanda talked ad nauseum about how we know a lot of people where they're in a relationship where it's not quite right, but because the person never hits them, well, it's not considered abuse then. It's not considered bad. And how often in movies, the easy way to write it is to have it be physically abusive. And what we were interested in is this relationship where it was more of a gray area, where it's not good, it's not healthy. And how does that work itself out? And how does that show itself?
Yeah, we had so many conversations. We used to meet up at this like outdoor bar in Greenpoint, Brooklyn called Lot Radio, where we go over all of our notes together and just talk about these kinds of relationships. And especially when I was writing it, I was thinking a lot about older erotic dramas that I loved watching. I was thinking a lot about Last Tango in Paris, and it's a movie that I feel very conflicted about. It's a movie I enjoy. There are also a lot of problems with it, and it's also very much a male perspective. And so I was kind of thinking about, well, how do you actually approach a relationship like that? And how do you kind of flip that on screen?
Yeah, I kind of felt like as the movie is developed, it feels like very claustrophobic in the sense of, obviously it's in a room, but you feel claustrophobic within the confines of this relationship. And so when that turn does happen, it feels like when the power flips and you feel like that there's a little bit more agency to your character, it actually feels like kind of a weight off your shoulders. It's very cathartic. So I was wondering of like Amanda and actually, well, for any of you, like how you kind of work together in the sense of developing the chemistry that you had and what that was like. I mean, it was very, intense, and I was just wondering what your process was like learning to kind of act together.
Well, we were very lucky because we were doing this right in the beginning, in the middle of the pandemic. And so we had all this time, that we wouldn't normally have, probably like a couple of rehearsals and then you're straight into a scene or something. But we had, I think, Amanda, like 3 weeks in a rehearsal, 4 weeks in a rehearsal room. And we, like, with the help of Lauren, who was absolutely incredible with different lights, exercise and things. We were able to sort of really thrash it out, learn it absolutely backwards. And we rehearsed it like a play. We rehearsed all the 3 acts like a play, and we would just run it and go back and over and over. And so that was invaluable, actually. So when you talk about that claustrophobic feeling, we really had that claustrophobic feeling, that we were in 4 weeks in a rehearsal room and we were just thrashing it out. But also, the one thing that I was really worried about when I read this was all the physical stuff and all the intimacy. That's really, what I was, having sort of night sweats about. I was like, it wasn't that comfortable. But then we had the most wonderful intimacy coach on this, Acacia, and they came in and they were absolutely just made everything so easy. Even on the first day, me and Amanda were right to it. And I didn't really know Amanda that well, and they just made it so sort of easy and cozy and like just second nature, normal. And that from day one, we were just in there doing that. Amanda?
Yeah, it must be kind of an incredibly intense experience to be acting in scenes like this that you're kind of called upon to act in, but also with all of the kind of artificiality of a film set and everything. Lauren, can you kind of talk about like what you wanted what were kind of the parameters of that you wanted to set out when you were making the film, and what the environment was like on the set that you wanted, and like how were you encouraging people to improvise, and yeah, what was your kind of artificial or your philosophy around directing with this pair of actors?
So for them, as Stephen was saying, we were so lucky that we had all this rehearsal time. So we really improvised and played a lot when we were rehearsing.
Mhm.
Sometimes we did scenes, okay, let's do this like it's a soap opera, or let's do this when,
Mm,
let's do really long pauses, or we really played a lot with it. So by the time we were on set, I feel like, while sometimes we might have improvised a little bit, really they were in the characters.
mhm.
And it was funny on set, people were like, wow, like you're such an amazing director, I can't believe how fast they're taking notes. And I was like, well, it's them, like it's like already in them, like I don't need to do much, they've already done all this work. And similarly with the cinematographer, we spent hours shot listing every single thing because we knew we only had one space. So we're like, how do we make sure we shoot this one location in all these ways that are interesting versus it being shot reverse shot on the couch the whole time. So by the time we got there, it was literally like we knew every single angle that was going to be covered in this apartment and all the different
Mm.
ways we were going to make sure that we were going to keep it visually interesting while still holding on to this idea of claustrophobia and also everything feeling not human. It was very important that the camera never felt like a person except for like very key moments.
And yeah, can you tell me a little bit about like the post-production process, and as you were kind of getting the pacing right and everything, and can you tell me a little bit about your approach to this, even like the sound design and the music, because there were just so many moments where I just felt like this, the hair on the back, it's a cliche, but the hair on the back of my neck standing up and all these different things. And I felt like I was being, you were making a lot of very conscious and deliberate choices. So can you kind of tell me about that?
Sure. I mean, I don't know where to start. So I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess if you just kind of want to talk about like some of the challenges maybe that you ran into as you were editing the film, and how you were communicating with your editor to kind of achieve the feeling that you were hoping to achieve.
Yeah, so I think a really fun thing and a really big challenge we had was that a lot of things are doubled. And so it was
Mhm.
like, how do we show this same thing again, but do it in a way that has a completely different meaning and have the pacing feel, is that slow burn thing of like something's not right. So how do we keep that moving without it being too fast? So me and the editor, we worked together ad nauseum to make sure that everything felt very in its right place. It's like oh gosh, we just spent so much time
Mhm.
going through it with that. But it was interesting because if we decided that something in act 1 had to leave, then it had to leave in act 3 too. So it was like, how do we make sure that we're always like prioritizing the thing that matters most versus like what act, like, well, this might be fun, but then if we do this, does it make no sense in the third act? So it was just like a lot of really watching things down and thinking through it that way. And then with the music was, it was a similar thing. It was, what was really fun about the whole movie is how do we show things from different perspectives and how does that different perspective change everything? So like, for example, the scene where she's crawling on the floor and she's hiding and there's the glitch, in the first, when me and Mikey Colton, who did the music, when we went to do it in scene 3, he's like, well, we've already done this music before, I know exactly what to do. And I was like, no, this is different because this is her perspective.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
where
yeah.
he would pause is not where she would pause. And where he would feel relief is the opposite of where she would feel relief. So there's a lot of things that were almost like Mary Kate and Ashley twins, where they're not like perfectly twins, but they're kind of like matching in an opposite equal
Mhm.
way. So yeah, it was like, how do we constantly do that while like create a whole new mood while still like drawing influence and pairing with the thing that came before it.
And yeah, it's really interesting, some of these different kind of ideas that kind of fully express themselves later in the editing process. And Amanda, do you come from theater as well? Is that part of your background?
Yes,
Okay.
most of my professional experience is film, but I grew up going to theater camp every summer for 9 years. Lots of theater as a kid.
Yeah. And how is it different? Like, I know obviously there are all these different kinds of choices that you make when you're doing a scene for the stage versus a scene for a film. But can you kind of talk to me a little bit about, like, if a version of this was a stage play, like, what are some of the kind of different approaches, and what kind of sets apart acting for the stage versus acting for the screen? For those of you, I'm from a documentary background, so it's all mysterious to me, you know.
It's about, when you're acting for the camera, it's about knowing that the camera picks up the tiniest things. So you don't want to be too big or too loud. You know, when you first get mic'd, you do a mic check where the boom, where the sound mixer asks, what's the loudest you're going to be? And what's the quietest you're going to be? And they're fixing the levels for whatever range you'll be speaking in theater, because you have to play to the back. You have to play the entire theater. You have to be a lot bigger. And that actually might be something that's a little tricky with Ruby, because throughout so much of acts 1 and 2, she's very, you know, she's holding herself in. She's being, I mean, she's being this version of herself that is for David, and her voice is higher, it's quieter, it's ultra feminine. As you can tell, that's not how I sound when I actually speak. Until act 3, when she kind of drops it and her voice lowers a little bit. So it's knowing about the tiny things that, you know, an eyebrow raise, no one in a theater is going to see a slight eyebrow raise, but the camera's going to notice that. You know, just like glancing to the side in a way that kind of conveys something means something on camera in a way it doesn't on stage, because someone in the back row doesn't see what your eyes are doing or the tiny little facial expressions that you're making.
Stephen, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Like, and do you have a preference for working with on stage versus on film?
Well, I think my preference probably is on film, but I haven't really done anything. This is my first real film, and I was so thrilled to take it, but I was nervous because I spend my life on stage. So it is a completely different thing. You know, I had to minimize everything, like right down to as much as I possibly could. And I remember saying to Lauren on my first day, I said, does my voice sound all right? Is this okay? It's like, because, you know, normally you're having to project, you know, spitting out, because everything's like getting to the back of the, you know, the gods. And but this was completely different, and I think I was probably most nervous about that, and like bringing everything right down. But you know, having a preference, you know, I do love the stage. I love the stage. I love the fact that if you go wrong, you have the next night to do it again. Not that does happen, but you know, or if you know, you can just try, you know, you just try new things every night. Whereas in films, like you do it and then that's done. I've found out. So but I love it. I love the discipline of the long days. It's like the 25-hour days. I love the, you know, of
Don't
like
say 25-hour days.
25-hour days.
Yeah, we have the union come after you.
No, but I loved it. I mean, I found it
hours. The crew was on longer than that.
My favorite would be film. I love the whole discipline of it, especially when you're working with these, you know, two people like this who just really look after you and who have done it a lot of times before. And they really sort of, you know, nurtured the whole thing. And, you know, but it was all about sort of bringing it right down. And
yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about, you know, as independent filmmakers and stuff, we kind of rely on the audience to kind of get the word out there and stuff. So can you take this time to kind of promote and tell people how to spread the word about the film? And I'll throw that to Lauren or Amanda or whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, okay. So we have a website. It's perfectlygoodmoment.com. You can also check out our trailer on YouTube. We're on IMDb. We have a Twitter, which is PGM Movie. Our Instagram is Perfectly Good Moment Movie, I believe. But if you just Instagram search Perfectly Good Moment, it will pop up. We've been covered in Broadway World, Trailer Report, Cinema Femme. I have personally a very active Twitter where anyone can reach out to me. You can also go to my website, which is just myname.com, and email me directly. Lauren also has a very active website and is easy to get in contact with. Stephen, you can just Google because people know who he is.
Yeah.
He's been around the block. He has a Wikipedia page.
That's a claim to fame.
But yeah, you can Google the movie and you'll get all of our socials, the IMDb, YouTube, everything.
Yeah, and so much about independent film is just word of mouth and people kind of spreading it around and stuff like that. So make sure that anybody's that's watching, make sure to get out there and tell everybody that to go to look up the film and to see it. And there was a part of me, I have to admit, in watching the film, I kind of wanted to see what would happen next with these characters. I'd love to see a second version or a second movie where now you're completely in control and you have this piece of blackmail that you can use at any time. So it's definitely a mark of a good movie to leave you wanting more. So yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing your film with San Francisco Indie Fest, and really appreciate it, and really look forward to seeing what y'all do next.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And